Dariel was a member of the Demon Lord's army. However, he gets fired due to his inability to use magic. The pitiful geezer is left to wander around aimlessly and figure out how to survive on his own. Dariel, the adopted son of Granverza, one of the fearsome 4 demon kings, is pitilessly booted out from the Demon Lord's army by his brother, Bashverza, who didn't get the memo about family loyalty, tells him he holds the lowest rank in the Demon King's army, and that it was an honest inaccuracy that someone of his caliber was ever assigned to be the assistant to the 4 generals in the first place. Dariel tries to oppose, stating he has a mission entrusted to him by their father, but Bashverza tells him their old man has finally hung up his evil boots, so he's now in power. He then kicks Dariel out for being so useless. Useless, you may ask. Apparently, in a world filled with fireballs and lightning bolts, Dariel's magical talents are as absent as Goku's ability to give up fighting. Now homeless and without a clue of where to go, Dariel wanders the world aimlessly, like a politician during election season. He has done nothing but work in the Demon King's army for all 32 years of his life, so finding a new way to live is as effortless as juggling chainsaws. Just as he's about to collapse from hunger, his life suddenly takes a turn when he crosses paths with Marika, a young woman fleeing from a monster. Never one to pass up an opportunity for a heroic and potentially awkward moment, Dariel leaps into action. Despite having the weapon skills of a guy who's only ever held a remote control, he grabs Marika's dagger and through sheer protagonist luck takes down the beast. Coming from a place where magic is solely relied upon, that was his first time wielding a weapon. Marika commends him and likens his fighting abilities to the last hero, who was hailed as the strongest in history. Coming back to his senses, he remembers he's not to get involved with humans, so he tries to slip away, but Marika, who despite her small stature has the grip of a gorilla, holds him back and insists he follows her back to her village so she can thank him properly. Hearing that he'll finally be treated to a nice meal, Dariel caves in and lets her drag him like Taylor Swift back to her village. Meeting himself not only in the strange girl's house but also in front of her parents, Dariel sees the need to hide the fact that he's a former demon, not that it matters anyway. When they ask what he was doing in the forest, of course after the necessary introductions, Dariel keeps things vague, admitting that his former employer's son fired him after he took over the family business. He adds that he was living in the company lodging, so he had to leave, and that explains his wandering around. Hearing him yap about his sad story, Marika gets all emotional and angry at the fictional boss. She then insists he stays in their village, better still, their home, and her parents seem to be on board with the whole idea. Due to her persuasions, he decides to take up their offer. Besides, to someone homeless like him, this whole thing is a blessing in disguise. Later that night, Marika comes to thank him officially for protecting her. She then goes on to give him a pep talk about how people have always been relying on her, and how good it felt to be protected for once. The following morning, Marika's father tells Dariel he's the village's guild master and would like him to become an adventurer. Dariel immediately turns down his offer, telling him he'd be more suited for some manual labor like farming or something of the sort, but in reality, he's trying not to get discovered as a demon. Marika's father tries to perform the guild ritual on him, but Dariel, understandably nervous, tries to make up an excuse about draining all his energy from fighting the monster the previous day. Unrelenting, the old man performs the ritual, and in a shocking twist that feels like it came straight out of Attack on Titan, he somehow passes the test and becomes an E-rank adventurer. The results make Dariel wonder if he's really a demon or was simply human all along. That would make more sense because, from what he remembers, Granverza had adopted him and brought him into the Demon Kingdom. As Dariel adjusts to his new identity, he learns about aura, a human magic that enhances weapon abilities. In that world, there are 4 different types of aura users, depending on their types, so the best choice of weapon for an adventurer depends on its compatibility with their aura. The 4 types are Slash, Sting, Hit, and Protect, and Marika's father decides to help him by discovering his category. Though he once thought he was as weak as Yamcha in a Dragon Ball fight, Dariel soon discovers that he's got some serious skills. His aura ends up being compatible with all 4 types, spelling out mad potential for him. That's positive 10,000 aura points for the sore loser. Marika's father suggests he head to a bigger city with a larger guild so he can improve like Shinra Kusakabe in Fire Force. But in a very J. Cole-like decision, he chooses the simple life, deciding to stay in the village. Later on, Dariel gets introduced to the other villagers as their new member and adventurer, and they all seem thrilled to have him, all except one mid-pouty adventurer named Gashita, who seems full of himself. Envel, Marika's father, later decides to give Dariel his first quest as an adventurer. He shows him the image of a particular dreadful monster, which had been terrorizing the village for a while. But what do you know? It happened to be the same monster Dariel took down while trying to protect his daughter. Dariel earns a well-deserved promotion for slaying the monster, and Gashita, upon finding out, gets even more pouty, calling him an old bastard for absolutely no reason. He picks up his next monster-slaying quest and makes fun of Dariel for choosing a quest that involves looking for medicinal herbs as he storms out. Thinking he's signed up for a peaceful, chill life with the low-stakes herb-gathering quest, Dariel proceeds to head out, only to get stopped by Marika, who insists on tagging along. As they advance, Dariel tells Marika she doesn't have to accompany him into the forest. After all, the main reason people hire adventurers is because it gets pretty dangerous there. She tells him not to worry, and that villagers go into the forest too. They only ask adventurers to go into the depths of the forests or the dangerous areas, sometimes even when they're feeling too lazy to go themselves. She tells him someone recently caught a cold in the village, but Gashita considers it a little sus for a D-ranker like him to be running errands like this. Anyway, not only does she cling to his hand like they're on a date in a rom-com, but she also takes charge of the entire quest, making Dariel feel like a sidekick in his own story. He's left wondering why she's not an adventurer. They discover some deer tracks and try to track it down for dinner later. As it turns out, Marika is surprisingly skilled, but she claims she's too scared to fight, and that explains why she was running from the monster Dariel saved her from. That'd have made way more sense if she also didn't bat an eye when casually hunting monsters for dinner. But what can we say? I guess women really are complicated. No shades thrown. Marika's crush on Dariel becomes even more obvious to us, the watchers, but the fact that he's stuck in the plot makes him as dense as Naruto whenever Hinata is around him. They find the deer amidst some bushes, doing deer stuff, but in a twist straight out of a teenager's dream, it sees a different monster and starts fighting kung fu with it. Dariel is really confused at what is unfolding before his eyes, but Marika suggests that they use the advantage to take the two beasts down. Getting back to the village, the villagers praise Dariel for being able to hunt down two monsters, even though he was on a herb-gathering quest. This time again, Gashita starts fuming with anger, because it turns out that the other monster they captured was the monster he had gone on a quest to slay. The poor kid stomps off in anger without a word. 3 days have passed, and Dariel has gotten pretty used to life in the village. Returning from a quest, he heads home to report to Envel as usual, but meets Gashita heading out of the house. Gashita gets more pouty upon seeing him, and walks by without a word, making Dariel worried. On getting in, Envel drops a bombshell that Gashita, who has more enthusiasm than sense, has decided to tackle a blaze death scythe. It is a really powerful creature that is meant to be handled by the guild from a bigger town. It's like having a random low-ranking Shinigami from Bleach face off against Aizen Sosuke. As if that weren't enough, a team from a real city guild has already accepted the quest. Naturally, Dariel volunteers to save Gashita from his own stupidity. Just like you'd expect from someone who clearly didn't think things through, Dariel finds Gashita fleeing the death scythe with all the grace of a Scooby-Doo character running from a ghost. Dariel tries to stop it, but it swiftly dodges him and charges straight at Gashita, who uses his aura to fire some arrows, but they end up breaking upon touching its skin. Then enter Dariel with a heroic slash that cuts through one of the monster's eyes. In pain leading to a rampage, it goes berserk like Big Mom experiencing one of her hunger pangs and ends up shattering his sword. At this point, Dariel's sword is in shambles, but Bro is not one to relent, even on the verge of death. In his Sasageo moment, he combines 2 aura techniques, turning a sword fragment into a projectile that he hurls into the Death Scythe's mouth. 1 hit, 1 kill. Somewhere in the universe, Erwin from Attack on Titan is nodding in approval. Dariel then uses the knowledge he gained during his herb-gathering quest to tend to Gashita's injuries while the kid cries like a baby. After his close encounter with death, Gashita finally comes to the realization that maybe he's been a little reckless. Sometimes all it takes is a near-death experience to knock some sense into the regular anime side characters. The following morning, while Dariel has breakfast with Marika and her family, Gashita barges in, still as enthusiastic as ever, but this time referring to Dariel as his big brother. Meanwhile, back in demon territory, things are going about as smoothly as trying to teach an orange cat to sit still. The 4 demon kings are struggling in their war against the hero, And that's because it turns out that Dariel, the very guy they fired for not being able to use magic, was the glue holding the entire operation together. With him gone, it's like The Office without Michael Scott. Everything is falling apart and no one knows what they're doing. They already hired 4 new assistants and each keeps messing up badly. Naturally, the other Demon Kings are desperate to bring him back, but Bashverza is just not that guy. He's pulling a full-on Joffrey from Game of Thrones and stubbornly refuses to admit he made a mistake. Gashida decides to shadow Dariel like Shay in Era Ferreta, trying to level up off clinging to Hakuto. Meanwhile, Dariel seems to have a bigger problem. After finally managing to ditch Gashida and return home, he is greeted by the usual bear hug from Marika, who always takes him out. Her hugs are proving to be more dangerous than a Superman punch, making his bones rattle every single time. You can almost see his ghost oozing out of his body each time. Later on, Dariel claims to have noticed a secret mystery the village is hiding. Dariel asks Envel why there are so many empty houses in the village, and he requests a map from Marika, which he uses to explain it to him. He tells him that this is all that remains of a place that was once full of life. He tells him that beyond the village lies a mithril mine, which is one of the most important sites for the human race. He explains that mithril is a metal with many mysterious properties, and weapons made with it boast unparalleled performance. While he gives the boring lecture, Dariel thinks to himself that mithril is also as important to the demons, but in their case, it is used to make magical types of equipment to store magical energy. Due to the joint interest, the scramble for possession of the mine continued for several hundred years. Envel explains further that their village was a stopping place in the mithril transport route, so it flourished as an inn-town, but when he was a child, the demon army took over it. They tried to fight back but failed, so they've given up already. Since then, the economy's been about as alive as a Game of Thrones character in Season 8. The village population has declined further and further, and at this rate, it is destined to slowly die. Later that night, Dariel can't seem to get enough sleep because he's one way or the other tied to the village's misery. He once was a manager of the mine for the demon army, and now he gets to see things from the other perspective. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. The following morning, he decides to pay a little visit. While sneaking in, he notices that the mine is heavily unguarded, making it easy for even Stevie Wonder to enter. He thinks back to his time working for the Demon Kings and reminisces how toast he'd be if he was the one who made a mistake like this. Advancing into the mine, he meets his old friends, the Knockers, a demon subspecies with a natural knack for mining. After exchanging pleasantries, he asks them what's going on, and they explain to him that the mine is being run into the ground by one of Bashvasa's new commanders, who clearly couldn't lead his way out of a paper bag. A few seconds later, footsteps are heard, and the Knockers tell him the soldiers have come to collect the mithril, so he decides to hide. The commander of the soldiers asks the Knockers why they still haven't mined enough mithril yet, and they try to explain that if they're meant to mine 4 times the usual amount, then they're going to need more time, but the commander shuts them up and tells them not to talk to him like they equal. Bro probably thinks he's the main character. When he turns around to leave, one of the Knockers loses it and hits him with a shovel, making him mad. Out of anger, he orders the soldiers to kill them all. Dariel sees that things could get really ugly because the Knockers are non-combatants, so he steps in and interrupts the spell a soldier is trying to use to wipe out the Knockers. In true superhero fashion, Dariel goes undercover as an anonymous adventurer with a Lupin-like disguise, which no anime character has ever seen through. He asks the soldiers to leave, but the commander just gets pissed at the human pest who is so full of himself. He orders his soldiers to kill him instead, so they begin their chants. Dariel doesn't want to harm any soldier, but he's left with no choice, so he sheaths his blade and proceeds to attack them. Seeing him move makes the Knockers hyped up, so they also charge in for an attack, but the useless bunch gets their asses handed to them. He hesitates and tries to use Naruto's special Talk no Jutsu on the soldiers, but the commander breaks through it and forces the soldiers to keep attacking. Recognizing the chant pattern, Dariel proceeds to attack the soldiers with his sheathed blade, ruining each chant in a way that could only be done by a professional. He then makes his way slowly up to the commander, who pleads for his dear life. Turns out he wasn't even a legit soldier, just some demon Bashvasa recruited at a random party. Dariel convinces the foe commander to quit while he's ahead after cutting his hair to look like that of a monk, and the rest of the soldiers peace out. The Knockers, absolutely thrilled to have someone competent back in charge, decide they've had enough of the demon army and pledge their loyalty to the humans. Dariel gets back home and convinces the Adventurer Guild HQ to protect the Knockers and reopen the mine like some kind of non-profit organization. Envel agrees to it and thanks Dariel for bringing what seemed to be a distant dream into reality. Just like that, the village is back on the map. ready to make it rain with mithril. And as if Dariel's day couldn't get any crazier, he calls Marika by her casual name for the first time, so she loses control and hugs him so hard that he's knocked out cold, Naruto style. While Bashverza works in his chambers alone with his talking pigeon, Zeviantes, one of the 4 generals who has long teal hair and deep blue eyes, walks in on him. She asks what he's doing, and of course, he flares up at her for entering without his permission before proceeding to tell her what's up. He tells her he's in the midst of creating a compressed magic weapon. Using mithril, with its high magic absorption rate, as the main material, he's trying to combine a number of magical elements through continued compression. The dreadful general gets carried away and keeps on yapping about how his social experiment is to create a megabomb, which he shall then use to reign as the greatest of any 4 generals in history. Typical side character mindset. Zeviantes asks if his operation won't need a huge amount of mithril, and he tells her that won't be a problem, as he's having it delivered right now. She then bursts his bubbles by telling him the mine has been stolen from them by the humans. She goes on to worsen his case by telling him someone even wants to lodge a complaint with him. He asks which insolent person would dare rebuke him, and she tells him it's the Demon King himself. Things heat up for our man Bashverza. After losing the mithril mine and running the demon army like a bad season of The Bachelor, the Demon Lord finally has enough. Bashverza's punishment feels like it's straight out of Naruto's Hokage scolding a wayward genin. He calls him stupid and makes him grovel and apologize. Like that's not enough, he praises Dariel and asks him to fix what he caused. Meanwhile, back in the land of almost romantic gestures, Marika comes this close to popping the big question and asking Dariel to marry her. You can practically hear the wedding bells and see the Sailor Moon love sparkles, until Gashida and Fitbatan burst in with their not-so-subtle argument. Dariel asks what's going on, and Gashida replies that the Jiji-san was busy spewing out trash about how all adventurers from the countryside are fake, and he couldn't sit back and take the slander. Fitbatan, who struts around like he's the love child of Vegeta and Scarlet Witch, arrogantly introduces himself as the leader of the adventurer team sent to hunt down the Blaze Death Scythe from Campbelltown, and a B ranker at that. Finding out that Dariel is only a D ranker, he gets even more arrogant and starts talking out of his ass to them. Dariel interrupts him and tells him about the fact that the Campbell adventurers had tried to corner the Death Scythe and failed, and that's why it escaped to their village area. He figuratively tells the geezer to stop acting all high and mighty as he turns around to take his leave. But then Gashida, never one to miss out on a bragging opportunity, casually drops that Dariel took care of the deadly creature all by himself. On hearing that, the people of the town start raising him, calling him an A-rank adventurer, while Fitbatan turns purple on the sidelines. Cue his rage. It's like telling Goku someone else already gathered the Dragon Balls. His ego simply can't handle it. Later over dinner, Gashida drops the news about how Fitbatan was talking trash about Dariel, and Marika loses it and goes full Mikasa, ready to cut his guts out like a titan. In the process, she accidentally refers to Dariel as her husband, and this completely catches him off guard. Of course, she immediately gets flustered and excuses herself out of embarrassment. The misunderstandings continue. Thanks to the comedic turn of events, Envil also thinks Dariel is already engaged to his daughter. Poor Dariel is left dazed and confused, probably thinking he's wandered into a friend's subplot. But there's no time for Dariel to process his new accidental engagement, because the guild headquarters needs him for some urgent diplomacy. The Knockers, who are about as trusting as Attack on Titan Survey Corps, refuse to negotiate with anyone except Dariel. After a quick heart-to-heart, Dariel convinces them that it's cool to talk shop with the guild's representative Besfred, who seems like the kind of guy who could give Full Metal Alchemist's Roy Mustang a run for his money in the charm department. Dariel returns back to base and crosses paths with the Campbell adventurers, who have been appointed to a bodyguard quest to protect the Knockers. Dariel then hears a familiar voice calling out to the Knockers from a distance, so he decides to approach it. Getting there, he meets his old pal, AniRizz, a demon with major anxiety issues. Like bro WTF. The Demon Lord has sent him on a mission to get the Knockers back, but instead, he bumps into Dariel. AniRizz, channeling the energy of a guy begging for his job back after a corporate layoff, reveals that the demon army is on the brink of collapse, and it's all Bashverza's fault for sending him out. He begs Dariel to return and save the day, but Dariel refuses, telling him he's human, so he belongs with other humans. He was fired by the top officers. AniRizz then tells him that there's someone who wants him back among the top officers. Lady Doroy, one of the generals, has been looking for him this whole time, but never imagined he could be living with the humans. He begs Dariel to come back one more time, and Dariel refuses this time, embracing his humanity like Superman embracing his inner Clark Kent. Rizé then apologizes for what he's about to do as he uses his water magic to engulf Dariel and tells him he's going to take him back, even if it means rendering him unconscious. Not the same guy he used to be, Dariel easily breaks out of the water prison. Then he comes up with a suggestion that they can just sell mithril to the demons. Later that day, Dariel introduces Rizé to Bestfred and tells him his suggestion, and he doesn't seem to be on board with having anything to do with the demons. But Dariel ends up convincing him that if they don't find a way to give the demons some mithril, it'll result in a war in which both sides will suffer serious casualties. The only way to resolve the generational crisis is to start selling mithril to the demons. Fitbatan, who has been on the sidelines the whole time, suddenly voices out his opinion of standing against working together with demons. He tries to attack Rizé, and Dariel uses his aura to stop the attack immediately. After reprimanding Fitbatan for his out-of-pocket action, Bestfred finally agrees to Dariel's demands. Bestfred gives Dariel a simple request, which is to find and reopen the mithril foundry that once existed in the village. Sounds like an easy task, except for the fact that Fitbatan, in true dramatic fashion, has already claimed the place for his team. It's like showing up for a game of dodgeball only to find out that someone else has already taken your spot, and Fitbatan isn't exactly playing fair. He tells Dariel to go home and join the others to prepare their meals. After all, he's just a D-ranker. Later that day, Envil tells Dariel that defending the mine was the one thing that Campbelltown had a piece of, and now that they've lost it, they're on edge. Dariel then feels bad because the Campbell adventurers seem to have lost their guard job because of him. Shortly after, Marika comes calling out to him from a distance, asking for his help. He asks what's wrong, and she reports to him that an old man visiting the village had touched her chest. Dariel gets all serious like Saitama, and wishes the old man dies 1,000 deaths. Turns out Bro is a cultured man as well. When they approach the geezer, he asks what the fuss is all about, since all he did was touch her chest and Dariel cuts in that the sentiment crosses a line. The geezer asks who the incompetent adventurer is, and Marika starts barking like a Rottweiler on leash. While Dariel tries to hold her back from going at the old mad, he yaps on about how dull Dariel's sword is due to over-sharpening, and that someone who'd entrusted their lives to a rattling weapon like that is definitely incompetent. Marika then stops barking and starts speaking after words, bragging about how Dariel used that same rust sword to take down a group of soldiers, and also a death scythe. Hearing all that, the old guy gets pretty impressed, so he asks Dariel to stretch out his hand so he can read the nature of his aura. Upon finding out that Dariel is one of the rarest types who possess maximum power in all the 4 types, he gets pretty fired up. He then introduces himself as Smith, the Mithril Smith. He heard that forging mithril is possible in the village, so he came to have some fun. Turns out Smith, the Central Guild's greatest mithril blacksmith, is there on the direct request of the Center Guild. Think of him as the anime equivalent of Tony Stark, if Stark specialized in medieval metallurgy instead of arc reactors. He asks Dariel to lead him to the smithy, and Dariel tells him he can't, because it is currently being run by adventurers from Campbelltown, and since they're higher ranked than him, they won't listen to him. Smith then tells him not to worry, and to take note of his negotiation skills when they get there. When they get there, Dariel is extremely disappointed, as the negotiation skills the old man was referring to was groveling. He leeches on Fitbatan, while constantly pleading that he wants to touch some mithril just once before he dies, and Fitbatan is forced to allow him. At least it worked. Getting in, Smith is disappointed to see how poorly the Smiths are doing, so he decides to show them the superiority of a master-class smith like him. He grabs some mithril and professionally forges it into a sword which he hands to Dariel. They both go for a spin with the new bad boy, and Dariel finds out that the mithril equipment is lighter, sharper, and way more efficient than his old rusty sword. But here's the kicker. Smith has zero interest in working with Campbell Guild's blacksmiths because of how rude Fitbatan was. Dariel finds out that Smith isn't just there to swing a hammer, but he's actually got grand plans to forge the greatest mithril weapon of his career, a masterpiece tailored to Dariel's unique aura. The old man had pocketed a bit of mithril from the smithy, which he intended to combine with the one from Dariel's sword for his grand plan. Again, the old man has somehow also prepared a furnace in the basement of Envil's house through the aid of his assistant. Dariel recognizes it as an ethanol furnace, which won't work except with the aid of magic. Good thing he still has ties with the demon. He sends for Rizé, who shows up to do the job. During the process, Dariel steps out for some reason but runs into Fitbatan, who desperately tries to recruit him to his guild in some sort of half-baked plot to deny Central Guild access to the mine. Predictably, Dariel refuses, prompting Fit-Batan to challenge him to a duel, because of course, that's what you do when you're out of ideas. The others try to convince him to forfeit the duel because going at a B ranker at a D ranker is no different from Panda going up against Gojo in Jujutsu Kaisen. R.I.P. Satoru-san. And the most terrifying thing about a duel is the fact that if one of them dies in the process, it won't be charged as a crime. Despite the warnings, Dariel decides to go on with the duel. The following morning, Fit-Batan, showing off like he's in a Dragon Ball Z power-up scene, reveals that his smiths have already forged a sword and shield from mithril. He wastes no time mocking the dagger that Smith's whipped up for Dariel. Classic villain move. But Smith has the last laugh, pulling a Full Metal Alchemist trick out of his bag and revealing that the dagger is none other than the Hermes blade. This isn't just any blade, mind you. With Dariel's aura, it can shapeshift into pretty much anything. Sword, whip, maybe even a chopstick if the plot demands it. In the inevitable anime-style clash, Fit-Batan's inferior mithril weapons don't stand a chance. His sword shatters like a cheap action figure after a rough day at Comic-Con. After the fight, Bestford decides that enough's enough and plans to punish Fit-Batan for being a general menace. But in a move that feels straight out of Naruto's playbook of forgiveness, Dariel insists Fit-Batan should be let off the hook, provided he repairs the houses destroyed in their testosterone-fueled duel. As if things couldn't get more dramatic, Bestford then offers Dariel a job at Central Guild. Marika happens to walk in that very moment. Later, Dariel reflects on this job offer in, of all places, a sauna. He thinks deeply about the offer because there's a good chance that he'll be able to learn more if he takes it. And also, his parents. Marika then casually walks in and sits beside him, causing him to freak out. She then tells him she would like to talk for a bit. Marika, ever the supportive partner, sits down beside Dariel in the sauna, the warmth wrapping around them as she offers the emotional pep talk every anime protagonist needs at least once per season. She tells him she's been thinking that something like this might happen for a while now because, well, he's an amazing person. She knows deep down he's capable of great things and admits she's all in for him taking the Central Guild job. Her voice trembles with emotion as she rambles on about how everything in their small, quiet village has changed for the better since he arrived, and how his presence brought a new spark of life to everyone. She says she's grateful, truly grateful, to have crossed paths with him at all. Marika then leans closer, adding that she'll always be cheering him on, whether he stays or goes, and that he should give it everything he's got if he decides to join the Central Guild. Dariel listens quietly, absorbing her words, but when he finally gets the chance to speak, he confesses that he's actually considering turning the offer down. Marika blinks, caught off guard. When she asks why, he smiles gently, saying that when he was fired and lost, she was the one who found him and brought him into their village. Marika's eyes brim with tears, the joyful ones, like a fan discovering their favorite anime is getting a new season. Overwhelmed by emotion, they share a heartfelt kiss. Meanwhile, in a subplot that's basically a tragic anime dad arc, Bashverza goes to visit his father, Gran Verza, a legendary warrior who's been out of commission ever since the hero gave him a beatdown that landed him in early retirement. Poor geezer. Bashverza, trying to save face, pretends that Dariel is still working under him, but Gran Verza isn't having it. Channeling the same energy as the baldy named Saitama, whenever someone calls him bald, Gran Verza gives him a punch that sends him flying and leaves a huge hole in the building. I wonder what kind of father does that, because even Garp, Luffy's Gramps, doesn't go that far. He tells him he has been receiving appeals from many demons, asking for his clemency and that he should intervene in their affairs. The crazy old man tells his son to get up and go and bring Dariel back, as that is the only oath remaining for him to continue in the Four Generals. Bashverza, determined to prove he's not the Yamcha of this family, refuses and storms out, vowing to succeed on his own. He claims to prove that the son of a lion is also a lion. Back in the village, Malika's mom is up to her usual sneaky antics. She somehow confirms, Sherlock Holmes style, that Dariel and Marika spent the night together. Turns out their kiss had led to other things. Dariel, now fretting like a character in a romantic comedy, feels extremely awkward talking to the parents of the girl whom he had just spent the night with. He keeps wondering if they have any clue, so he starts sweating profusely. The parents then tease him intentionally, and he's made to wonder whether he should confess everything about his feelings and decisions. Before he can even open his mouth, Envil throws yet another plot twist into the mix. He announces that he wants Dariel to take over as chief. No pressure or anything. Dariel, not one to refuse destiny when it knocks, agrees, but not without proposing to Marika in the process, like some kind of Inuyasha-level romantic moment. The maiden, of course, accepts his proposal. A year's time has passed, and things are looking great. Dariel is now the village chief, has married Marika, and even leveled up to dad status with a baby boy named Gran. The village has grown very much, the processing of mithril has also flourished, and the village is now way more prosperous than it was at its peak. Dariel gives credit to the perverted old man, Smith, who recently passed away. Life seems peaceful, until news about the hero's sudden arrival reaches Dariel. How's that bad news, you may ask? It's simply because Dariel was once in the Demon King's army, so he knows how dangerous the hero is, of course, from that perspective. Again, the fact that he's known for coming after anyone he perceives as a threat, no matter who they are, and now all Dariel can think of, is that he's here to deal with him, a former member of the Demon King's army. To make matters worse, Dariel gets put in charge of welcoming the hero and his escorts, so his best possible option is to go in disguise while keeping his weapon with him in preparation for the worst. Expecting the usual bearded geezer, Dariel is shocked to see a young girl with blonde hair emerge. She introduces herself as the hero lady and thanks them for accommodating their sudden visit. He asks about the previous hero, and she replies that he suffered grave injuries from his battle with a demon and hence had to retire. She then asks if he's one to judge people based on their age or gender, and he apologizes if he came off rude. Dariel later finds out that Lady is so new to the whole saving the world gig that she's got heroic behavior notes scribbled on her hands. It's like she's cramming for a big exam, except the exam is defeating the Demon Lord. They had come to the village to get some mithril armor to aid her goal. The following morning, over breakfast in Dariel's house, the hero, Lady, and her subordinates, Satom and Sesha, tell Dariel that aside from the mithril weapons, they have another objective in the village, but would like to see the mithril first. At the smithy, Dariel shows them the different mithril weapons and gets them to test their infirmities. To get their made-to-order items, he calls on Sakai, Smith's apprentice, and the current #1 smith in the village to check out their aura types. And he helps them design weapons according to their types. Lady then tells Dariel that their second objective for coming to the village is to find a fourth member for their squad, whom they've been searching for a while now. Gashida, who had just managed to walk in, overhears their conversation and tells them to leave it to him. A few minutes later, a banner is put up in the center of the village by Envil, announcing the hero's party selection tournament. Everyone gets all psyched up at the fact that someone from their village will be selected to be in the hero's squad. They start the selection process with a head-to-head battle pitting the 3 hero squad members and the 26 people who volunteer to fight. To even worsen the handicap, Lady and her teammates carry fake weapons so the village people can have the advantage. Everyone charges at them, but they all get their butts handed to them. Gashida, bless his brave heart, turns the tides with his amazing archery skills from a distance, almost hitting Lady at her blind spot, but her spider sense kicks in, as well as her acrobatic movement, helping her barely avoid it. She charges at him, but he fires some consecutive shots at her, this time intentionally missing the target and making her drop her guard. He then uses his aura to redirect the shots toward her from behind, but if she were to go down that easily, she wouldn't have become the hero. Due to the plot of the anime, she destroys all the arrows with a single swing, only to turn around and find out they were all decoys, and Gashida already has his final blow coming. But just as he's about to taste sweet victory, Lady, probably overestimating her One-Punch Man abilities, almost deletes him from the anime by accident with a killer attack. Enter Dariel, the village's very own reluctant hero, who immediately brings her back to her senses. In typical anime fashion, this leads to Dariel facing off against Lady in a duel. What do you know? Our very own geezer of a main character wins the legendary hero without breaking a sweat. Seeing how powerful he is, she gets excited and begs him to join her squad, but he turns her down faster than you can say Worcestershire sauce. He tells her he has work and then leaves, painting her and her comrades' faces with confusion. It's like rejecting cooking classes from Yukihira Suma. Later that night, Lady asks Dariel if he's sure about not joining them, and he tells her he's certain because he has other things to do, like being there for his kid, unlike almost every African-American father. No shades thrown. Dariel, meanwhile, is having flashbacks to Lady Droys, one of the demon kings who was basically the demon world's version of Mahatma Gandhi. She believed in peace at all costs, and Dariel, having learned from her, is dead set on not helping Lady with her mission of deleting the Demon Lord from existence. To Dariel, the whole hero versus Demon Lord thing is like a never-ending anime battle arc that really should have wrapped up 5 seasons ago. Eiichiro Oda has been really quiet since this dropped. Lady, not one to take no for an answer, decides to shadow Dariel, trying to figure out why on earth he'd refused to help her. Over time, she begins to realize Dariel isn't about that whole war thing. He actually values life over constant sword swinging, which is something you don't see in a lot of shonen protagonists. She asks to see him alone in the middle of the night, where she asks him about the ability he used to negate her ultimate attack during their duel earlier. She likens it to a technique only the former hero could perform, and in reality, he had seen the former hero perform the exact attack repeatedly and had taught himself how to do it with aura, but he really didn't realize it was such an impressive skill. He tells her he doesn't know what the attack is, but she's not buying it. She asks who the hell he is to be strong enough to read the hero's sword work like it's nothing, and that for being that strong, he must fight for humanity alongside her and protect his people from the Demon King's army. Dariel then drops a major truth bomb that the demon army only exists to protect the demon lord from the hero. Turns out they've never actually started a war with humans. It's always been the hero who comes knocking first. He tells her that everyone is just trying to protect their friends and family, and the reason he doesn't want to join her is because he has friends and family on both sides. This revelation hits Lady like a plot twist in Attack on Titan. She finally gets it and relents. Instead of insisting that Dariel join her party, she asks him to be her mentor. Dariel agrees, figuring he might be able to nudge her away from the whole quest and maybe towards something a bit less destructive, like becoming a peaceful village chief or probably a McDonald's worker. Meanwhile, back in Demonland, Lady Doroye is feeling all sorts of despondency because Dariel is still nowhere to be found, and Bashverza has apparently decided to do nothing about it. Zebiantes also doesn't come around anymore, and it's making her feel like she's running the Demon Kingdom on her own. Meanwhile, Dariel gets a surprise visit from his old pal Rizze, but little did they know that Zebiantes was on their trail. Looks like things are about to get a little more complicated. Rizze delivers the news of how he's now a special envoy in the demon army, thanks to Dariel helping him figure a way around the mithril issue. Dariel asks how big a deal the job is, and he replies that it's on par with the 4 generals. Dariel congratulates him, and also asks if it's a new position because he doesn't recall any post like that during his time in the demon army. And Rizze tells him it wasn't needed before, after all, they had him. Zebiantes suddenly appears in front of them, interrupting their conversation. Speak of the devil and she will appear, right? She punishes Rizze by making him go down on all 4s and using his back as a chair to conceal Dariel's location, even though he is aware Doroya is desperately in search of him. Marika arrives home at the moment and is hospitable enough to serve drinks for Dariel's new company. But as she brings the drinks, she overhears Zebiantes trying to roast her husband, so she unleashes her inner Hulk, scaring the crap out of her. When she finally settles down, Dariel asks her purpose for coming to the village, and she tells him she secretly followed Rizze just to spy on the mithril, but found him also. Oozing with the pride of a Kardashian kid, she commands him to hand over all the mithril, and he turns her down faster than you can spell Arnold Schwarzenegger. She then gets pissed and questions who he is to talk to her like that, but immediately calms down when she senses Haki, similar to that of Big Mom, coming from the person behind him. Dariel suggests they go outside for some fresh air. Getting outside, Zebiantes tells him he can't be saved by the monstrous village girl now, so he shouldn't prepare for his punishment, as she uses her wind magic to fly high to the sky. Dariel immediately tells Rizze to stand back while he charges towards her and beats her easily. Surprisingly, the high and mighty queen turns into a toddler and keeps demanding remains, but Dariel whoops her ass every single time. Out of options, she then decides to use her ultimate attack to destroy the village and take her time locating the mithril herself, but Dariel stops her easily again. I have no idea what's wrong with the writer of this anime, but in the process of stopping her, Dariel accidentally grabs Zebiantes' undergarments and they come off. She then gets all whiny, threatening to report him to his monstrous wife, so to keep this little wardrobe malfunction under wraps, she makes him agree to forge her a mithril weapon for a cheaper price. Zebiantes then swings by the smithy to pick up her shiny new weapon, but Dariel realizes there seems to be a bigger problem. The hero squad would soon be back from their shopping spree, and he needs to devise a way of keeping Lady from running into Zebiantes. He heads out and meets them just around the corner of the smithy. If he had waited just 1 more minute, the whole building could have been in shambles. Running into them, he quickly cooks up something and gets the hero to start practicing swings as his first training lesson to her, and everything goes pretty well, for a short period of time. The distraction plan ends up as successful as Izuku Midoriya, not breaking any bones. Lady and Zebiantes bump into each other in a sauna of all places, which makes them ready to go all out. But Dariel, who tries to rush in and stop their fight, ends up groping the two of them, which earns him a synchronous slap from the hero and the villain. Now in full confession mode, Dariel is forced to spill everything about his past and how he's tied to the demon army. Both parties are shocked to discover that he's a human who was raised among demons. Marika now cuts in with some boring love story no one is interested in. I'm sorry, did I mention they were at Dariel's house when all this happened? My bad. The two girls find a way to redirect their anger back at each other and things start getting heated up. But before things can escalate into an all-out anime brawl, Marika swoops in like an MVP to keep the peace by suggesting they hold a duel the following morning. They meet the next morning, Lady wielding a mithril sword and Zebiantes sporting a wind magic necklace, which they both got by overworking Sakai all through the night. The duel begins, and it's a close fight, with no one in the upper hand, like a Naruto-Sasuke duel. I think the irresponsible parents need to be taught about the rule of not bringing a baby to a fighting environment, because during the fight, Gran wakes up from a nap and begins to head towards the girls. At that moment, the cliff on top of him literally collapses, threatening his limited time in the world. At this moment of desperation, Dariel and the two rivals have to team up to protect the snotty-nosed brat. The girls then realize they're more alike than they thought and end up becoming buddies, like they're from a My Hero Academia episode. Dariel, meanwhile, is just hoping all this bonding will pave the way for the peace between humans and demons he's been dreaming of, like he's the anime version of Martin Luther King Jr. Just when things settle down, the village gets a visit from Alansil, the retired former hero, bringing vibes straight out of a Boruto reunion special. What could possibly go wrong next? Seeing the legendary hero at his doorstep, Dariel can't help but shiver at his presence. At that very moment, Zebiantes casually walks in and disses the old man for exposing his chest like he's Dwayne Johnson. Dariel immediately draws the retard back and tells her who the old man is and why she should be careful around him. Some children approach him from behind, and the hero's countenance changes as he starts playing with them. Dariel then realizes that Alansil, the legendary hero, isn't the bloodthirsty warrior he remembers. Instead, he's giving off Major Master Roshi vibes. He's a kind old man who you know has got some serious skills tucked away. When the children leave, he greets Dariel and Zebiantes properly, making Zebiantes see no need to be cautious around him. Dariel then whispers to her that he's only nice to her because he thinks she's human, and that she should make sure he has left the town before she uses magic, because from what he remembers, things can get really ugly quickly. Dariel asks the powerful Oji-san what brings him to their village, and he responds that he heard his apprentice has been troubling them for quite some time. Lady immediately apologizes for taking too long in her journey to vanquish the Demon King. The old man tells her not to apologize since he's the one at fault for sending her off too hastily. He adds that now that his wounds have healed, he'll take his time to drill into her all the things he had forgotten to tell her. Dariel gets excited at how things are playing out, so he decides to take them to the training grounds. While signing autographs for children, the old man asks Lady to attack when she's ready. She charges at him with all she's got, but the old man completely toys with her and dodges all her attacks while signing more autographs. She's completely helpless against him. When he finishes signing the autographs, he commends her for having improved a lot since they last met. He asks who she's learning from, and she tells him it's Dariel, the village mayor. She then adds that he's the strongest person she has met besides him. The powerful old man is impressed, so he asks Dariel for a spar. Being his usual humble self, Dariel turns down the offer, claiming he is retired as an adventurer, but hearing the villagers make comments about how he won't stand a chance, he gets a little challenged and agrees to the duel. He senses the geezer's life-threatening aura and immediately suggests that they have lunch first, which he agrees to. They all have lunch under a tree, and everything goes smoothly until Zebiantes, in classic fairy tale fashion, messes things up by accidentally using demon magic at a distance. Alansil's switch flips faster than you can say Super Saiyan, and he flings his weapon at a tremendous speed towards the direction and traps her against the wall. He then arrives there immediately, almost like he pulled a yellow flash technique. He brings out a dagger and tries to unalienable her, but enters our main character who makes it just in time to block his attack. Alansil tells him to butt out of the affairs, but Dariel instead drops some main character bars that as the mayor of the village, taking another's life is something he simply will not allow. Alansil then tries to attack Zebiantes again, but Dariel puts in his best to rescue her from harm's way. But the power difference is clearly obvious, as Alansil easily pushes him to be on defense. Seeing that Dariel also possesses all 4 attributes like himself, the old man is impressed and he asks Dariel to become the next hero so they can team up to destroy the demon race. At this point, it shouldn't be surprising that Dariel turns him down immediately. Alancel then launches his fearsome Emperor's Sky Rend attack at Dariel, who equally does the same, and both attacks clash, but I believe we all know who remains standing and who is on the floor. Alancel talks down to Dariel like Mihawk to Zoro after their clash, and asks why he'd risk his life to protect the demons. He replies that race doesn't matter to him, he just doesn't want anyone to be hurt. Alancel further asks why he's so taken by demons, and he replies that it's because he was raised by them. On the demon side of things, Granverza is at his wit's end with Bashverza, who's been pulling a hikikomori move and hiding for over a year. He visits the Demon Lord and begs him to fire his son for his irresponsibility. The Demon Lord tells him he knows the main reason he wants Bashverza fired is because he fired Dariel, his adopted son. He then asks how he can value an underling he took in more than his own son. At that moment, Granverza gets a flashback to 33 years ago, when he watched Alancel take down the water demon king Bezitan. But Bezitan didn't go down without leaving a parting gift, a little baby named Dariel, who Granverza raised as the perfect weapon to one day take out Alancel. It's a plot worthy of Star Wars. Back in the present, Alancel suddenly drops the mother of all plot twists, that Dariel is actually his long-lost son, kidnapped by Bezitan when he was a baby. Before Dariel can even process this massive soap opera twist, Granverza bursts onto the scene, ready to stir the pot even more. The two prodigies prepare for an epic clash, but Dariel tries to step in. He tells Alancel that hearing he's his son leaves him confused, but Granverza is the one who raised him, so he owes him very much. He then turns to Granverza and thanks him for raising him and being his mentor the whole time. Granverza also thanks him for being his ray of hope. Their reunion moment gets interrupted by Alancel's fuming jealousy. Alancel can't seem to shake the bitter truth that Granverza got to be a father while he never had the chance. The fact that Dariel, his own son, was raised by a demon general stings deeper than any battle wound he's ever received. Granverza, for his part, had no idea Dariel was Alancel's son. Bezitan conveniently kept that crucial detail to himself, setting the stage for this long-standing tragedy. The two are on the verge of clashing again, their magic crackling in the air like a scene from Dragon Ball Z when Marika suddenly steps in. With the tone of a mother who's had enough, Marika scolds both the hero and the demon for upsetting their grandson, Little Gran. It's the kind of telling off that would put Chi-Chi to shame, and shockingly, the two powerful men actually back down. When they meet Gran, the two grandfathers can't help but soften. Gran brings them to a truce, and against all odds, they make peace. But of course, the drama isn't over. Bashverza, who's been holed up for over a year, finally re-emerges, full of villainous swagger. He proudly announces he's devised the perfect plan to take down the hero. Unfortunately for him, no one seems to care. He gets informed that his father has gone to the Demon King and petitioned for his dismissal because the Demon King's army is falling apart under his leadership. To make matters worse, everyone's too busy blaming him for firing Dariel, the subject of his hatred. Ignored and bitter, Bashverza destroys the whole building with his fire magic. As he slowly walks out of the burning building like James Bond, he vows to make everyone suffer for insulting him. And as for Dariel, let's just say human barbecue would be the best way to describe the kind of death he's planning for him. Nothing humbles the most powerful men more than seeing their newborn children, or in this case, grandchildren. The two prodigies become so soft while trying to bond with their grandson, just like Drake, simping for Millie Bobby Brown. Later at the village party, Envil is visibly nervous, being joint grandfathers with Alancel, the legendary hero, and Granverza, the powerful demon, is like navigating the world's most awkward family reunion. It's meet the parents, but with magic and ancient rivalries. Yet, to Dariel's relief, Alancel and Granverza actually start bonding. It's a slow process, but watching them get along gives him hope, and hope that this new dynamic might lead to peace. It's like finally watching Naruto and Sasuke finally burying the hatchet. Later that night, Marika redresses Dariel's injuries while scolding him for being so reckless during the day. After the scolding, she commends him for working so hard, like every other anime character's wife would do. She then leaves him a dessert as she leaves to clean up the mess made in the house. Shortly after she leaves, Zebiantes comes in to check up on him. She still hasn't officially thanked him for putting his life on the line just to protect her. Of course, her ego won't let her do something like that. She teases him instead, telling him she had no idea he was so in love with her. Before waiting for him to straighten out things, she tells him she'll think about his feelings before giving him a reply as she quickly heads out. The following morning, Lady, ever focused on her training, pulls Alansil aside. But with all the recent revelations, the conversation takes a sharp turn as Alansil admits that the Demon Lord isn't the true villain. The war, it turns out, was started by humanity's leaders who wanted to steal the Demon Lord's ability to bestow magic. Their goal was to give humans access to magic, in a power grab that feels ripped straight from a Harry Potter conspiracy. Shocked but determined, Lady decides to remain the hero, not just to fight demons, but to expose the truth and break the cycle of lies, much like Eren, trying to expose the truth about Titans to the world in Attack on Titans. Just when things seem to settle, Fitbaton comes to report that the Mithril Mine is being attacked by a monster. Dariel immediately orders Gashita to assemble a squad and follow after them as he asks Zebiantes to transport the rest of them there. On getting there, they discover the monster to be a dragon, sending the village into a frenzy and engulfing it in flames. Everyone rushes to help, like a scene straight out of fairy tale. Dariel, thinking quickly, realizes the knockers are trapped and rushes to free them, throwing himself into danger like Luffy on a mission. Meanwhile, Granverza, Alansil, and all the others team up to distract the dragon long enough for Dariel to do what needs to be done. Realizing that the knockers will always be in peril as long as the dragon is on the loose, Dariel decides there's no time to sit this one out. He runs towards the mines and Alansil accompanies him to shield him from any approaching danger. Lady, on the other hand, charges at the beast alongside her squad, but can't seem to leave a scratch on the magical beast's body. Thanks to Granverza, who steps in at the last moment to save them, they'd have been cooked for real. Getting to the mines, Dariel is pleased to see that the knockers have somehow managed to stay alive, but the dragon still isn't relenting. So he and Alansil pull a Naruto and Sasuke move, and combine their ultimate attacks to knock it out of the sky with one swift strike. The giant lizard gets up and looks Dariel in the eye, who stares back at it boldly. It then decides it's had enough for the day and flies away. Positive 10,000 aura points for our main character. After the dragon flies away, Dariel can't seem to shake off the nostalgic feeling he got from staring at the beast. Granverza, too, gets suspicious about something, so he makes Zebiantes carry him to the Demon King's castle. Dariel then goes to rescue the knockers, some of which were trapped under some rumples. He blames himself for not being able to protect everything, and Alansil, upon noticing it, tells him to discard the MEI diet of wanting to handle everything all by himself. He tells him that those who stand at the top must be sure to borrow the strength of others when necessary. News then reaches Dariel that one of the guild workers who was in the mine is missing, and the knockers volunteer to go with Dariel in search of the worker. Back at home, Granverza returns with Zebiantes, ready to confront Bashverza like it's the final showdown in a reality TV drama. He meets Bashverza casually having tea. Without wasting time, he asks him if he entered the Room of Secrets, which he was forbidden from entering. Bashverza doesn't deny it, so it turns out he was behind the dragon all along, using forbidden hex magic. The 1 year he spent in hiding was actually used to search for magical beasts and to research sacred arts. Granverza is livid because hex magic doesn't just make you powerful, it fries your brain like a bad Black Mirror episode. Bashverza is playing a dangerous game, and it's messing with more than just the battlefield. He has already gotten to the point of no return, so no amount of words can get him to change from his ways. Still determined to prove he's better than Dariel, he pulls a full-on villain move, hopping on his dragon and flying off with the goal of taking down the legendary heroes Alansil and Lady. He's in full Madara Uchiha mode now, believing that wiping out his enemies will finally get him the respect he deserves. Meanwhile, in the mine, Dariel isn't getting a break. He runs into Gigantomachia, the magical earth beast, essentially a massive, stomping force of nature with more power than a Final Fantasy summon. But the twist here is that Gigantomachia isn't here for a brawl. Instead, he's upset, because his old friend, Salamandra the magical fire beast, is suffering. And, in a My Neighbor Totoro level of unexpected friendship, Gigantomachia sees Dariel's good heart and offers to upgrade his weapon. He enhances Dariel's Hermes blade with the rarest mithril, mined from his own body. It then vanishes. Just as Gigantomachia leaves, they find the guild worker who was missing and take him out. Dariel then receives a call from Granverza, who tells him that the person controlling Salamandra is none other than Bashverza. Just before the next big battle, Marika steps in with a heartfelt gift. She hands Dariel armored gloves and, in true romantic anime fashion, her wedding ring. It's her way of telling him to come back in one piece, She then goes on to assist Envel in helping the village people evacuate the premises. Shortly after they leave, Bashverza arrives at the front of the village with his new pet. After the necessary villain introductions, he notices the ring on Dariel's finger and suggests that it'd be more fun if he kills his woman. This puts Dariel on edge and makes him more determined to stop the rampaging Bashverza. Meanwhile, Bashverza is in full endgame mode, declaring he'll end the war by wiping out every human in the world, and his first target will be none other than Dariel, his self-proclaimed nemesis. As their duel begins, it's clear that Bashverza isn't just fighting Dariel, he's fighting his own insecurities, his need for validation, and the pain of living in Dariel's shadow all these years. It's a battle worthy of a Naruto versus Sasuke comparison, but instead of pure hatred, Dariel surprises him with something else: empathy. He acknowledges just how hard Bashverza must have worked, and how unfair it was that no one ever recognized his efforts. But instead of taking the compliment, Bashverza loses it. Enraged that Dariel dares to pity him, he starts transforming. The forbidden hex magic slowly changes his physical form, turning him into a dragon in a way that feels straight out of Attack on Titan's wildest transformations. It's clear now that the real fight isn't just about strength, it's about whether Dariel's kindness can break through Bashverza's rage before the hex magic consumes him completely. The hero squad. And the two prodigies are left facing the salamander while Dariel handles the main fight. On Salamandra's end, the heroes seem to be doing a good job, taking turns to hit it repeatedly at its blind spots, but not much damage is done. Enter a Lancel, who uses a thunderbolt attack to straighten the beast's jawline, and Granverza, who defiles the laws of anime by using even greater flames to take out the flame beast. Seeing Bashverza's new form, Dariel knows he's up for something serious, so he takes his defense more seriously while trying to talk Bashverza back to his senses. Bashverza then uses a fire technique similar to the one Granverza just used and tries to fire it at Dariel. But Dariel, who's always 2 steps ahead, attacks him with a bigger technique to parry it. It is later revealed that Bashverza has gone through a more sophisticated transformation and now looks almost exactly like Kaiju no 8. He gets way stronger and begins to overpower Dariel. The hex then starts to mess with Dariel's mind as well, but it does more than just make him dizzy. It sinks their consciousnesses, dragging him straight into Bashverza's memories like some wild Inception dream sequence. Dariel finds himself walking through Bashverza's past, and what he sees hits him harder than any punch. Ever since Granverza brought Dariel home, Bashverza had been feeling like the ultimate third wheel. He always tried to do his best so he could end up by his father's side, but his efforts just weren't enough. Simply because Dariel didn't just join the family, he replaced him as Granverza's son. Every time it seemed like he might get a moment to shine alongside his father, Granverza retired and handed all the important responsibilities to Dariel. It was like living in a twisted Full Metal Alchemist scenario, where the older brother gets all the glory, leaving the younger one in the shadows. As Dariel witnesses this deep-rooted loneliness, he's gutted. He feels for Bashverza on a level that hurts, but this only fuels Bashverza's anger. There's nothing worse than having your lifelong pain understood by someone you've always resented. It's like Sasuke being told by Naruto that the two of them are the same, right when all he wants to do is punch him in the face. In a surprising turn, Dariel pulls a reverse Uno card and drags Bashverza into his memories. Bashverza sees Dariel's own sense of isolation growing up as a demon who never truly fits in. Despite all that, he always valued Bashverza as the little brother he never had. In this emotional tug of war, Bashverza finally realizes that his own stubbornness and jealousy are the root of his suffering. It's like a major therapy breakthrough in the middle of a Dragon Ball Z fight scene. He breaks down in tears, and in that moment, the hex shatters. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows just yet. Salamandra, now free of the hex's influence, is gearing up for a full-blown rampage like a kaiju monster straight out of Godzilla. Desperate to stop the destruction, Bashverza makes the ultimate sacrifice move and fuses with Salamandra's body, taking control so he can fly the beast far, far away, but it's clear this will cost him his life. In a dramatic turn straight out of an Avengers movie plot, Granverza and Dariel team up to save him, and since the author of this anime isn't Gege Akutami, they manage to pull it off. They then get an emotional reconciliation moment, where Bashverza deeply reflects on the calamities he almost caused, all because of a fit of one-sided jealousy. With the battle won, Dariel returns home, victorious but exhausted, ready to collapse. But just as he's about to enjoy some peace, Marika greets him with a hug that nearly snaps his spine. He barely survives the encounter. Meanwhile, the Demon King isn't feeling as forgiving. He asks Bashverza to pick between burning in hell, just like the previous members of the 4 generals, who have heinous crimes just like him, or starting over as one of the 4 generals again, since he's still young. Bashverza immediately thanks him for his mercy, but chooses hell instead. The Demon King asks him why, and he replies that what he has done is unforgivable, and that if he tries to escape the crimes he committed, then nothing will change. The Demon King then reveals that he wanted to make him happy for a minute before dropping him into hell, but his answer is definitely far from what he expected. He banishes Bashverza from the Demon Kingdom, just like the way he banished Dariel. Bashverza takes his leave, and of course shows up at Dariel's place. Dariel welcomes him warmly and offers him a place, but Bashverza's got other business. He apologizes for having caused them a lot of trouble due to his insolent mind, and his father Granverza apologizes alongside him. Little Gran wakes up at that moment and reaches out to him to carry him, which he does. Cue the anime plot. Gran manages to squeeze out his first words there, calling Bashverza his big brother. He then gets emotional and asks if it's possible to atone for his crimes because everyone around is precious to his older brother. They all get emotional as usual. Not wanting to let the moment slip by, Dariel decides it's time for something special, a family portrait. But this isn't your average photo op. It's a picture that brings together humans, demons, and heroes in a rare show of unity. It's like the final season of Avatar, The Last Airbender, where everyone comes together after the chaos to find balance. They celebrate again that night for whatever reason. It's an anime, bro. With peace finally restored, Bashverza bids them farewell the following morning, choosing to travel the world in classic wandering Ronin style. But before leaving, he promises to swing by occasionally, like that one uncle who always shows up with wild stories from his travels. And so, life in the village returns to its peaceful, quirky normalcy, with the occasional adventure thrown in. Dariel finally gets the quiet life he's longed for, but knowing this world, it's only a matter of time before the next bit of chaos rolls through town. If you want more awesome anime recaps, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. You won't regret it. Until then, take care.